Yeah, inheritance is what we are telling. Already some class is there, so that class I am extending in my subclass. So that means that all the properties whatever there in the existing class are super will come into the subclass. Okay, so that will call it as inheritance. There are single level inheritance, multi level inheritance, hybrid inheritance, like that. Multiple types of inheritance is there that we'll discuss today. Okay. Yeah, good question. So next, yeah, so you want me to repeat yesterday's class, or you can go ahead with the continuation? Okay, fine. Okay, 5 to 10 minutes. We'll revise and then we'll go. Okay. Now, so inheritance means like we'll call it as a normally easier relationship also. We'll call inheritance also as a easier relationship also. Okay. Now, normally just assume that already you have someone is created some class. Okay. Someone has created one class with some functionality. Okay. Just assume someone has created, let's say I have created my own functionality with some function. Okay. With some any function name. Okay. Now, if you are also you are also creating your own class. You are also created your own class. Okay. But so you need of the method implementation what I did. Okay. You also need of M1 method or whatever the implementation, whatever the method that I have done. So in that case, if you don't know or if you want to use of my M1 method, either you need to write your own method again with the duplicate, or you need to use of my class, right or not? So instead of making that duplicate the code, okay, instead of making the code duplicate, we can use of class. We can extend that class b extends. Extends a means obviously whatever that is there in the a class. Okay, methods and variables, those are available to b class. Okay, now let's say m2 method I have created in m2 method created in b class. Okay, now the b class contains M1 method as well as M2 method. Why M1 method? We are extending class A. So that means that inheriting A class properties into B class. Okay. Inheriting superclass properties into subclass. We'll call it as a inheritance. We'll call A class as a superclass or base class or parent class. Okay. We'll call A class as. Now B class will call it as a child class or subclass. We'll call child class or subclass b class. Okay, now why we are extending class A? The main purpose of inheritance is reusability of code. Okay, someone has written the code, I want to utilize their code by extending that class. By extending that class, extending that class, then obviously the properties of the superclass will get be inherited to subclass. Okay, now next, the point we need to remember. Yeah, go ahead please. Yeah. Yes, it means it is increasing code, right? Let's say if I want to without this class also, let's say this class is not there, just assume. If I want M1 method, I need to write again M1 method in this class, right? Correct or not? So then in this case, class A is also M1 method is there, class B is also M1 method is there. That means that it is increasing the code, right? Lines of code. Correct or not? So that means that in the code, it is of duplicate code is coming. In class A is also duplicate, class A and class B having same code, but we are using duplicate. Okay. Instead of duplicate, we will reuse the existing functionality what is already there in the A class. Right or not? Even in the projects also, compulsory we need to reuse if any functionality is there. First we need to check, is there any functionality for this? If it is not there, we'll go for. Or if that is not suitable for your requirement, method is there, someone is implemented, but that is not suitable for your requirement. Based on your requirement, you may need to do of some more extra implementation. Okay, then Let's say for example control Z. Second. Now M1 method here is there. So let's say here M1 method implementation is not suitable for your requirement. As per your requirement, this is not suitable. Then in that case, we can go. We can override this function. We can override this functionality which is implemented by class A. That will come as part of polymorphism overriding concept. Okay. Now for time being, to remove the uh, duplicate code or reusability purpose, we will use of inheritance. Is it clear, guys? I think someone asked the question. Yeah. Now, so let me. Yeah. Now I have. Just assume I'm creating of. Let's 1 second. Yeah. So out of these two, out of class A and class B. Okay. So class A is called what class will call? Class A is super class or parent class. Okay. Or base class also we can call. So the class B is child class or subclass. Okay. Now class A contains one variable and one method. What about class B? Class B also has its own variable and method. Now what is the total number of variables and methods in class B now? Class B is extended class A. Okay. Now the total number of variables and methods in class B is two methods and two variables. Yes, two variables and two methods. Okay. But class A contains only one variable and one method only. Okay. Now, even if you are reading also, you will understood this. Whatever that I have added, you can understood this part. Here class A has two members. Okay. Class B also has two members. Okay. J and method 2. Class B is extending class A. So therefore, members of class A are inherited to class B. Now class B will have two additional members inherited from class A along with its own members. So is there any difficulty in understanding this para? Clear, right? Yeah. Now, so even here also I have given the same way. Okay, you can read it. Now, yeah, these 4 points. Remember, if you understood clearly these 4 points, you can calling and extending and implementation is very simple. If you are understanding these 4 points, which I have given in the note. So, whatever methods whatever methods parent has by default available to child, by default available to child if you are extending that class. Okay. Hence, on child class reference, on child class reference, we can call both parent as well as child methods. We can call someone is in the lobby 1 second. Yeah. So from child class reference, from child class reference. Second, where is inheritance? Yeah. From child class reference, C is the child class of B. From child class reference, we can call all the superclass methods as well as child class methods. That's what this point, first point. Okay. Is it clear the first point? Is anything is not clear in this? Good. If clear means I am thinking, if you are not giving any answer means I am thinking it is clear. Okay. Whatever methods child has, whatever methods child has by default not available to parent. Let's say in my C class, I have one method, M3 method. So will it be available to class B? Will it be available to class B? Why it is not available? So class C is subclass or child class to B class. The child class methods will not be available to superclass. Only superclass methods will be available to subclass. Okay. Whenever whatever the methods child has by default not available to parent. Hence, on parent reference we cannot call child class specific methods. Okay. Now what we are doing? Child class having M3 method. Okay. On superclass is B. Okay. B class having M2 method. So I have created object of child class C, new C. Okay, just assume it is not there. I have created a new C. Okay, I am assigning the reference to parent class. I am assigning this to parent class. If you are assigning child class object to the parent class reference, with this reference, we can call methods only of B class methods, but not C class. Okay, that's what the meaning of the second point. Is it clear, guys? Now, now third point. Parent reference can be used. Parent reference. This is of B is a parent class of C class. Okay. B is the parent class of C class. So the parent reference means B, guys. Here B is a class. B, capital B is a class name. Small b is the reference or object. Reference or object. So normally parent reference can be used to hold any of its child class reference. Parents reference, parent class object reference can be used to hold any of its child class reference. Child class to hold any of its child class reference. But using this reference, we can call only the methods present in parent class. Okay, that's what the third point. Okay, next, parent reference can be used to hold child class object. That is clear up to now. But we can't reverse it. We can't reverse means we can't use child class reference to hold superclass object, capital C and capital B. This is not possible. Capital B is a superclass of child class of C, right? So we can't store superclass reference in subclass reference. So in superclass object we can't store in subclass reference. Now let's go. Parent reference can be used to hold child object. Okay, that is possible. But child reference cannot use to hold parent object. That is not possible. The point is here. Where is that? Yeah, see this one. So A is a superclass, B is a subclass. So we are creating object of A class and we are assigning to B class reference. That is not possible. Okay. These are 4 points. If you are clearing this one, the rest of the things is it is easy to understand for you guys. Okay. Now let's move to point one first. Okay. Yesterday we have discussed this one. Okay, regarding a class can contain yeah, class can contain it have static blocks. Okay, static block is there, non-static block and instant non-static block and constructor. It can just assume this is constructor. Okay, let's say even though if it is not there also, compiler will add, guys, remove this. This is of remove parameterized constructor. Okay, and this is of non-static block, this is of static block. Along with this I have one variable and one method. Okay, while you are extending, while we are extending class A in class B. Now let's say class B is extending class A. So whenever you are extending class A, so it will inherit only variables and methods, but not static block, but not non-static block, but not constructors. So those will be executed at the time of object creation. Those will be executed while creating an object to the subclass. While creating an object to the subclass, I have extended class A, but when those will execute means when this non-static block, static block and constructor will execute means at the time of creating object to the subclass, those will execute. Okay, so that's what point number one. Now let's see the constructors. What is mean by constructor means, guys? Let's say take off one more class. mm, Class D. Okay, class D or anything class sum. Just assume some class. Okay. Now simply I have created of one class sum. Okay. Just created one class as a sum. So inside this, so constructor means constructor name will be same as class name. Constructor name must be not, it must be same as class name only. If we are giving without any parameters, without any parameters, then I can call it as a default constructor. So it does not having any parameter, just only class name with parenthesis and no return type also, guys, no void, nothing. Okay, no void, nothing. So only we can give off private, public, only these two we can use. Okay, but after that only with only class name without any parameters means, then I can say it is a default constructor. Okay, default constructor. Let's say if I'm giving as if I'm giving some with some single parameter int I, int I, so then I can say it is a parameterized constructor, single parameterized constructor. Okay. Now, if I want to write one more constructor with two parameter, and say this has already the sum constructor with single parameter is already there. So it will same method will not accept it, same constructor. So we need to add either one more int j. Then I can say this is a two parameterized constructor. Okay, two parameterized constructor, single parameterized constructor, and this is default constructor. Okay, to call this by default, this will be called. When this will be called means, let's say for example, main. If I'm creating class, okay, if I'm creating class s equal to new sum, then in this case, which constructor it will execute, guys? In this case, yes, exactly. In this case, default constructor will be executed. See, if I'm a control, just click on sum. So it is going to default constructor. If I'm passing 10, then which parameter will execute? Yes, only yes, this one with a single parameter. You can say like single parameterized constructor will execute. Okay. Now we'll write it system.out.println single single param constructor sti okay, default default constructor, no parameters. Okay, now in this case, two param constructor is okay, two param constructor int I comma j. Now let's see. So if I'm passing this one 10 comma 20 comma, let's assume if I'm passing one more 30, which constructor will execute? In this line, which constructor will execute? Do you have any constructor with three parameters? So in this case, compiler will give error. Okay. If it is not able to identify that, it will give error. Okay. Constructor sum with three parameters is undefined. Okay. Now, if I am giving two means, then automatically it will identify with two parameterized constructor. Okay. Now let's run it. One second. Now, so now in this case, which parameter is constructor? Which constructor is executed? Sum with two parameters is executed. Now, my requirement is I want to execute of this constructor also. Inside this, I want to call all constructor. I want to execute in one shot. But I will write single line only. But I want to execute of all constructors. Within this class, how many constructors we have? Within this class, how many constructors, guys? Two. We have three. One is default, one is single parameter, one more is two parameter. But I want to write only single line. I want to write only single line, but I want to execute of all these constructors. Then in that case, we can use this keyword to call one to call within the same class. If you want to call from one constructor or another constructor, then we need to call. We need to use of this keyword. We need to use of this keyword. This of if I am passing I means this of I or j some value I am passing. Then internally it will call this means it is a current class object. Okay, this means it will go to single parameterized constructor. Is there any constructor with single parameter? See, if I'm calling this, it is automatically going to sum of with single parameter. Okay, again inside this, I'll write off only this. I'll write only this. Now see, it is if I'm calling this one automatically, it is calling default constructor. It is calling of default constructor automatically, right? Now in this single, so I'm writing directly which at the time of creating object, which constructor I'm calling? Two parameterized constructor. Inside two parameterized constructor, what is the first statement? What is the first statement, guys? Yes, this of j means it is a internal it will call of constructor within the class with a single parameter. Okay, this of control z. Okay, second. Yeah, this will call to this constructor. So in this constructor, what is the first parameter? First statement. This. This means it will go to default constructor. Yes. Now, first will execute of default constructor. After completion of default constructor, it will come to single parameter constructor. After completion of that, it will come to two parameterized constructor. Now you should tell what are the first what is the first output statement will come after that. Yes, after that two parameterized constructor. Yes. Now you are bit understood of this example. See, default constructor, single parameter constructor, and two parameterized constructor. Okay. Now, now there is one more called super. There is one more called super. If you want to call off super class constructor, now let's say class summary. One more sum is method, and this is of let's say sub method or okay sub method extends sum. Okay, and inside this class also just assume we have I'm creating of default constructor. Okay, this is default constructor for a subclass. Okay, I'm creating of one more sub of single parameterized constructor. Okay, I'm writing of one more sub of with two parameters int j comma int j. Okay, with two parameterized constructor. Okay, now go a little bit up, copy for better understanding. Single param constructor j two param constructor I j j. Okay, now what I'm doing, I'm creating, I'm writing main method in the subclass. I'm creating object for subclass. I'm creating object for a subclass. Okay, I'm creating object for subclass. So whenever we are creating object of subclass, whenever we are creating object of subclass, so internally it will call superclass, right? So I told you yesterday, if this internally the constructor contains first statement must be either this or super only it will accept in the constructor. So let's say here I can't accept this as a first statement or super also or super also. It must be the first statement. It must be. So first already we have system dot outer println is there. I am creating object of sub with two parameters. It will call this method. Okay. If I want to call off other class, other constructors. If I want to call other constructor, what should I do, guys? Let's say in this class I have, yes, just assume this. Okay. Of A. Okay. Now, so if I want to call off other one, then it will go to this here. Okay. Now, inside this, if I want to call super, now let's see what will happen. See, it is not enabling, right? So what I am doing inside inside this class, it is taking up two parameters, right? Right or not? Inside this, it is calling internally this one. Okay. So, but where it is calling super class constructor, there is no chance, right? So compulsory, it must be to call the superclass constructor. We need to use super keyword. We need to use super. If this is not there, compiler will add super keyword. If that is not there, this keyword, the compiler will add of super keyword. Okay. Then what happened? Of that, let me rename. Now, let's remove this. Yeah. Now, let's now it is showing run as internally default constructor is calling. So inside sub, I'm calling sub of two parameter. It is calling of this parameter. This constructor is executing. Okay. Internally, it calling super of deep super class default constructor. So what is the super class of subclass? Sum. So sum class default constructor is executing by subclass constructor. Subclass parameter is constructor. If you are not adding anything internally, it contains of super keyword. Internally, compiler will add super keyword and then it will immediately superclass constructor will execute. Superclass default constructor it will execute. So even though if I'm not adding this super, okay, it is executing of superclass default constructor, or we'll use some default constructor. Maybe all are having same, right? Sub. Now let's see which superclass constructor will execute. See, subclass two parameters constructor is called. Internally, it is calling some default constructor is calling. Some default constructor is calling. So if you want to call off any other parameterized constructor of superclass, then we need to use of super keyword. Su super of I comma j. If I am giving, then it will call off superclass two parameterized constructor. Do you have superclass contains with two parameter constructor? Yes, so if I am calling from subclass constructor, if you want to call superclass constructor, we need to use super keyword. Okay, then it will immediate superclass constructor with two parameters constructor it will execute. Okay, I am passing in the super two parameters. So compiler will execute, will search for is there any superclass which contains of two parameters. Yes, we have two parameters. Internally, which one we are calling again? Single parameter is constructed. Then it will call again inside the single parameter we are calling default constructor. Now let's see how many things it will display now. How many things? Let's see. First it is calling of default constructor. Okay. After that, some parameterized constructor, some single parameter, some two parameter. After that, sub two parameterized constructor is called. Here or not, guys? This one. How to call it? If you want to, let's say I'm not passing anything here. Okay. If I'm not passing anything. So how many constructor will execute now? Which constructors will execute? So do we have default constructor of sub? So from this internally, which constructor will execute of superclass? Ye- In the superclass. In superclass, let's say in the subclass we are using default constructor, right, for creating object. So internally, so it will call off which superclass constructor? Default superclass. Yes, default some class constructor. This will execute. Now let's run it. See, some default constructor, after that sub default constructor, right? Now, so in one shot, if you want to call off other things also, what we need to do? We need to call one another. Yes, yes. If you want to execute the one constructor in other constructor within the class, then we need to use this keyword. From subclass to superclass, if you want to call any of the constructors, then we need to use super keyword. Okay, I think by this time you might have clear. So how to call superclass constructor or in the same class constructor? Okay, let's say for suppose, let's say for suppose, yeah, go ahead. Default constructor of this class. You don't want this? Default constructor of subclass. I'm not fully clear on the question. So it can't execute it. So if this is not there also, fine, internally it will execute that. If this is not there also, fine, but whenever you are calling super, it is expecting some two parameter. Now if I'm calling, only this message will come. The superclass constructor message will not come, but internally it will execute that. So internally, so whenever you are compiling code, the compiler will add sum of constructor empty, sum of constructor empty with again super, with super it will be there. One second, where it is capital S. So if you are not writing that constructor internally, while compiling code, compiler will add like this. Okay. So do you have any system that out println to display the message in this one? Compiler is adding this one. So if you want, let's say for suppose, if this is not there also, let me, but compulsory this will execute. If I'm debugging, if I'm running this code, let's debug as a Java application from this. Okay. See, automatically that is a compulsory. Without that, the object will not create subclass object. Without executing superclass constructor, without creating superclass object, subclass object will not create. So internally it will create, and then it will come to subclass object creation. Okay, before going to create subclass object, first it will create its superclass of subclass is sum. First internally it will create some class object. After that only it will create a subclass object creation will finish. That's what internal thing. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Now, yeah, by this time, yeah, one more class, subclass. Yes, we can. Yeah, let's add it. One more class. Okay. Class. Okay. Go ahead. Okay. Subclass, right? Yes, obviously, right? Let's say class MUL. Just class MUL extends of sub. Just assume sub is extending. Okay. Now, what we are doing is now in this case, let's say I'll create of MUL with default constructor. Okay. MUL with I, int I. This is of single parameter constructor. If you want, you can write of any number of parameters you can write, guys. Int I comma int a. Okay, comma int k also. I have written three parameter, two parameters constructor. I have not written. Okay. Now, if I want to call within this internally, we have three parameters, right? One is without parameter, with single parameter, with three parameter. From this parameter, from this constructor, if you want to call this constructor, what we need to do? From this three parameterized constructor, if you want to call single parameterized constructor within this class, within this mul class only, yes, this of what we need to give? If I want this of any value, some parameter value, some int type value, okay, either I or j or k, anything that we can use. Then internally it will call, the statement will call which constructor? Whatever the selected line, it will call of which constructor? Yes, single parameterized constructor of same class. Okay, single parameterized constructor of same class will execute. If I'm simply giving this, okay, then which one it will execute? Default. Yes, we can. So now if I'm writing of here MUL, okay, MUL. So I'm creating which class object? I'm creating which class object? Multi MUL class object, right? So internally, internally, which constructor will execute? I'm calling mul. Okay. So internally, it is of default constructor, right? Without any parameter. So it will come to this one. From this, it will go to which constructor of super class? Sub of which constructor? Out we have three constructors in sub also. Which constructor will execute? Sum. It will execute some, fine. So it will go correct. What you said is it will execute first sum only, but flow is there, right? From this it will call superclass default constructor. What is the superclass of MUL class? Sub, right? Superclass of MUL class is sub, right? So from this it will call of superclass constructor of sub. Okay, what is the superclass of subclass again? Sum. So then internally this will call again the sum of default constructor of sum. First it will execute of this one, and then it will come to subclass constructor will finish, and then it will come to last, it will come to mul class constructor. Clear this one or not? Now let's see. So all default constructors will execute. We don't have system.out.println in superclass some class. That is the reason it's not displaying. If it is added, then it will execute that. Now let's run as, is it done or not? Some class executed first, sub and mul. Is it clear or not this one? Okay. No, yes, actually, that we can use means for creation of object purpose only we can use of constructors. Okay, but actual functionality we will write only in methods that will not be inherited. These constructors, static block, non-static blocks will not be inherited to subclass. So, what is a class contains? We have these things along with this, right? Right or not? So the actual these two only it will inherit to subclass. Okay, but these will be executed at the time of creating object for the subclass. Okay, actually these will execute at the time of creating object for the subclass. Now let's say where is the main method test class. So I have created B class, C class object and assigned to C. Okay, just assume C only. Okay. Now through C, so what are all the methods that I can call? M1 method, M2 method, C class is extending B class, B class is extending A class. So A class contain one variable, one M1 method. B class contains one variable and M2 method. C class contain only one method. So through this through C class object, see what all things A class variable, B class variable, okay, M1 method, M2 method, M3 method is there, but not constructors and non-static block and static blocks. It is not there, right or not? So those will be executed at the time of object creation. By default, those will be executed at the time of object creation only. You can't call manually those things like M1 method, like M2 method, like M3 method through object. Clear or not this one? Inherited properties are only variables and methods only, guys. Constructors, this non-static block, static blocks will not be inherited to subclass. Those things will be executed at the time of object creation. Okay, while creating object for the class, internally those things will execute. Okay, but actual things, if you want to use of any superclass members means compulsory only properties and variables only I can use it. Okay, let's say system.out.println of c dot I, c dot a, sorry a. Okay, system.out.println of c dot j. So these are variables, these are methods. This is a class of method, this is B class method, this is C class method, but all I am calling through C class only, subclass. Okay, and this is A class variable, this is B class variable, but even these variables also I am calling from subclass object. But I don't have option to call off. I don't have to call off this non-static block and static blocks. Okay, those will be internally, it will be executed in this line only. At that line, at the time of line number 7 object creation, it will execute of all constructors, block, non-static block, static blocks will be executed at the time of object creation, that we can't call manually. Let's run it. See, all are non-static block, sorry, static block, non-static block, constructor, B class constructor, okay, C class constructor. I think somewhere we have duplicated that in C class maybe. Okay, B class constructor. Yeah. Okay. Internally it is calling. Okay. Okay. Internally it is calling parameter is constructor. B class param constructor. Okay. Static block, non-static block, constructor of A. Internal it is calling of constructor of parameterizer. From this internal it is calling of default constructor. This is calling internally of default constructor of C class. So A class M1 method, B class M2 method, C class M3 method, and A class variable, B class variable. That all I am calling through C class object only. Okay, but I can't call off any of other things. Okay, that's what this one, guys. Okay, now is it clear that constructor calling internally, constructor chaining, constructor chaining? So what is mean by constructor chaining means or constructor overloading means okay. Now let's say, yeah, so default I have default constructor of class. Okay, default constructor of some class is sum of without parameters. I can say this is default constructor. Sum of with single parameterized, sum of with two parameterized constructor. I can say these three constructors are overloaded. Overloaded. The constructor name is same. Only parameters are changed. No parameter, single parameter, two parameters. I can say this as a constructor overloading. Constructor overloading. Okay, let's say for example void of m1 method. Okay, so next I will write void of m1 of int I. Okay, now next I will write void m1 of int I comma int j. So method is same. Right or not? Method is same. See, method name is same. In the first method, no parameter. In the second method, single parameter. In the third method, two parameters. I can say this as a method overloading. This is a method, right? This is one method. This is another method. This is of another method. Right? I can say these are method overloading. Overloading. So the next polymorphism concept is this only. Okay, that we'll discuss more about this. So this I'll call it as a writing a single constructor with by changing the parameters. I can say that as a constructor overloading. Constructor overloading. Next. Next. Static members of superclass are inheriting so subclass as a static members. Non-static members are inherited into non-static members only. Static members means let's say in the class A, in class A, what is this? It is a non-static member. Okay, if I want to use static b equal to 200. Okay, this is a yeah. So this is non-static member. This is static member. So static members will be inherited in the subclass as a static members. Non-static members will be inherited as a non-static only. Okay, that's what it is meaning. Next, yeah, one more point. One more point is that I missed in the superclass. In superclass, I have written parameterized constructor. I have written parameterized constructor. Okay, I have written in the subclass only. In the subclass only default constructor is there. Just assume in the subclass, if it is a default constructor is there, then it is the responsibility of developer compulsory. We need to explicitly call the we need to explicitly call superclass parameterized constructor. So if we have added any parameterized constructor in the class, then compiler will not add default constructor. In the class, if it is not there any constructor, then only default constructor will be added by compiler. Now, in this case, I have added one parameterized constructor. So compulsory, we need to call that parameterized constructor explicitly in the subclass. Now, in the MUL class, so I'm calling MUL. So internally MUL is calling into super keyword, right? So it is calling of default constructor of sub. Okay, inside this we need to call super of 10 comma 20. Just assume pass some values. Then internally it will call off this method. So if you are not calling this one, then in superclass we don't have default constructor. Okay, so that is the reason it will give error. If it is any constructor is there with parameters, okay, compulsory we need to call that parameterized constructor from subclass explicitly. Now let's see. Otherwise, the creation will not happen. Object creation will not happen that if that is the case. Okay. Next, this is what that explanation you will get compilation error. Let's say, see, in the A class, I have only parameterized constructor. Okay. In the B class, we don't have any constructor means default constructor will be added by compiler. Okay. Then in that case, compulsory at the time of passing, we need to call explicitly the superclass constructor. Otherwise, it will give off error. See, that's what this explanation. You will get compile time error saying implicit default constructor of A class is undefined for class A. Default constructor is not there in class A. Okay. Now, compiler will force you to write constructor in B class because we are not defining constructor for class B. In the class B constructor, we need to call explicitly this constructor, superclass constructor. So compiler will be providing default constructor. In that default constructor, first statement is super. Okay, it is calling. It is a calling statement to default constructor of superclass, but that is not defined in the class A. That is the reason it is giving error. Why error is coming means this is the explanation for that. Okay. Therefore, you will get compilation error. To avoid this error, write constructor from subclass. From that constructor, call superclass constructor explicitly like below. Now let's see. This is A class constructor with one variable. Now in the B class, in the constructor, we are calling explicitly superclass single parameterized constructor. That's what this one. If this is not there, it will give error. This statement is not there means it will give error. This is the meaning is explicitly we are calling superclass constructor from subclass. Next, point number 4. We can call superclass constructor explicitly through super keyword. I told you this one. Okay. So super calling statement from subclass. Okay. Now from subclass constructor, we can call other constructor of same class through this keyword, this calling statement. But we can't call subclass constructor. We can't call subclass constructor from superclass constructor. Okay. So what we are doing from subclass, we are calling superclass constructors, right or not? So if you want to call from superclass subclass constructor, that is not possible. That's what this point here. Next, next is some points related to inheritance. So private private members cannot be inherited to subclass. Private members means let's say int or else private int I equal to 100, just assume. So this private variables cannot be this private variables. Let's say here I'll make this as private. Here I'll make this as a private. So in somewhere wherever you are calling, yeah, see. So I'm calling c dot a. So actually it is giving off. It is a private member. It is saying. See, let's see what is it giving. See, the field a dot a is not visible. That means that private is only within the class. We can see outside of the class. We can't see that private members. That is the reason it is giving as a error. Okay, default members can be inherited to subclass within the package. There are some default members means if you are not adding anything, if you are not adding anything means by default it is a default parameters. Those things we can be used within the we can be inherited within the package. Default members can be inherited to subclass only within package only. Okay. And I told you I have explained protected members. I have explained protected members. Protected members also can be inherited to subclass. Protected members also inherited to subclass. If I'm making protected, this one, this also will be inherited to subclass. Okay, and but usage of protected member is within the package only. Compulsory, it should be within the package. Outside means it's difficult. Okay, through subclass only we can access it. Next, public members can be inherited to all subclasses within the package or outside the package. Anywhere we can access them. Okay. Next, types of inheritance. Types of inheritance means now I said till now we have discussed inheritance. Okay, if one class is if one class is if one class is extending of only one other class, then I can say that as a single inheritance. Okay, then I can say it is a single inheritance. Now in this case, just assume C is not there. C class is not there. Okay, just assume A class and B class. A class is extended by B class. Then I can say it is a single inheritance. If one other one, if class B is extending only one class A, only one level. So that is the reason I am saying single inheritance. If class A is extending by class B is extending by class C, then I can say it is a multi-level inheritance. I can say it is a multi-level inheritance. Okay. Now, if single class, if class A is extended by class B, class C, class D, okay? If single class is extended by class A, class B, and class C, B class is also extending A class, and C class is also extending A class, then we can say it is a hierarchical inheritance. Then I can say it is a hierarchical inheritance. Okay. Now, there is one more. Yeah, we have two classes. We have two classes. Class A and class B. Just assume class A and class B. Then I'm removing of class B here. So class C, if I want to extend of two classes, okay, class C extending of A comma B. This is not possible. This will call it as a multiple inheritance. Multiple inheritance. A class cannot extend more than one class. So multiple inheritance will not be supported by. See, that's the reason I give it as a red. So multiple inheritance is not supported by Java. Okay. Next, hybrid inheritance. Hybrid inheritance means, let's say my class A is there. Okay. Class A is extending class A and B class is extending A class. Okay. Now class C is there. Class C is extending class B. And I'll write off one more class. I'll write off one more class. Class class D. Okay. Extends of class A. Class A. Then I can say it is a single level inheritance as multi-level inheritance. Both is there. So that is the reason I will call it as a hybrid. It is a combination of more than one inheritance type. That is the reason I am calling it as a hybrid inheritance. Okay. This is what inheritance, guys. Okay, let's see inheritance. Single inheritance. One class is extended by only one class. Then I can say it is a single inheritance. If multi-level inheritance, one class is extended by a class and that class is extended by another class. So thus forming the chain of inheritance. Then I can call that as a multi-level inheritance. Okay. Now, hierarchical inheritance. One class is extended by many classes. Okay, one class is extended by, see here A class is extended by multiple classes. So that is the reason I am calling it is a one class is extended by many classes. So that this I am calling as hierarchical inheritance. Okay. Next, hybrid inheritance. It is a combination of about types of inheritance. You can give any types of all types of also in the same. So it is a combination of multiple types of inheritance. Then I can say it is a hybrid inheritance. Okay. Now, use of single inheritance mostly, and will use of hierarchical also, but not hybrid. Okay, and sometimes it depends on the requirement. Multi-level also we can use. Apart from the fifth one, multiple inheritance that will not support. Rest of all things will use depends on the scenarios. Depends on scenarios, will use all. Okay. Now, multiple inheritance is not supported by Java. One class extending more than one class that will not support due to some diamond problem. Okay, reason is why multiple inheritance is not supported by Java. The reason is class A. It contains of method 1. Okay, let's say class B. Class B is also having method 1. Okay, now class C is extending A comma B. Okay, then whenever you are creating of object of class C, if you are trying to call off method 1, so it will call off which class method, either class B or class C. So that time compiler will be in dynama, compiler will be in ambiguity. So that time it cannot understood which class method I should call. So that's where the ambiguity or confusion will come into the picture. So that is the reason the multiple inheritance is not supported by Java. The reason is that. That's what inheritance, guys. Is it clear? Okay, clear means then we are good. I thought I can start off polymorphism also today, but it is clear, right? The inheritance. This oops concept is fully clear means then remaining we can play aram se. Okay. Now, next to polymorphism, I'll explain it tomorrow, and at least practice it today, guys. Before coming tomorrow's class, at least practice inheritance. Then it is easily to understand polymorphism concept, all other concepts. Okay, okay, guys. Yeah, thank you. I think today's class is over. So already you people have document. So tomorrow I will give some programs also for inheritance that you people need to write programs. Okay, you need to give output for those. Tomorrow I will prepare some exercise programs for you guys on inheritance. 5 to 10 minutes we will discuss that, and then we'll go to polymorphism concept. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, boys. Thanks, guys. We'll meet tomorrow again.